So let's start out just for a moment watching the breath and generating our motivation, and then we'll talk about volume 4. So let's reaffirm our bodhicitta motivation and make sure that our sharing the Dharma today is done with a motivation that will bring good results for ourselves and others, not a motivation imbued with the 8 worldly concerns. So all these sentient beings that we hope to benefit eventually by becoming a Buddha, and even before that, by developing our compassion and wisdom. Right at this moment, they're experiencing all sorts of things, from horrible torture in the lower realms to incredible bliss in the upper realms. And yet all of them are stuck in the wheel of samsara. So they have no idea that what we're doing is doing our best at this very moment to be of benefit and service to them. But by keeping them, all these beings, in our hearts and in our minds, we continue to grow a compassionate connection to them that will blossom more and more as we practice. So let's be aware of that as we jump into the teachings and following in the Buddha's footsteps this afternoon. Okay, so come out of your meditation. Okay, so volume 4 was a very interesting volume to put together. It's called Following in the Buddha's Footsteps. And what it talks about is it has 2 main parts. The first part is refuge, because you'll remember in the last volume, Samsara, Nirvana, and Buddha Nature, we were really, of course, getting into true dukkha and the true cause of dukkha, and then, of course, true cessations and true paths. But that all leads us to take refuge in the 3 jewels, because the true cessations and the true paths are the Dharma refuge. And when we want to progress on the path, we need to follow wise guides So we take refuge in the Buddhas and in the Sangha that can guide us. Also, so true cessations and true paths are the Dharma refuge. But when we ask what true paths are, that contains the 3 higher trainings and the 8-fold noble path. And this is a way of explaining the true path that is in common with all the Buddhist schools. Of course, practicing Mahayana to the path, the true path, we would add bodhicitta and all the bodhisattva practices. But here in this volume, we're sticking to what is in common with all the tenet schools. And already that is a lot to practice, okay? So it's not something to skip over. Usually when we get to the middle scope in the Lamrim, the middle, the initial scope is a good chunk of material. The Bodhisattva practice is a bigger chunk of material. The middle scope is about this big, okay, in the books. But that's because a lot of the material that is shared in the middle scope has been put into the higher scope with the Bodhisattva practices, okay? So, for example, what is covered in this book is we go into some depth about the higher training and ethical conduct. It isn't just a few pages long. It's a good chunk, in introducing ethical conduct. I'll get to that more expansive in a minute. And then the second higher training is concentration. And that is usually described in the standard Lamrim way at the end of volume 3, just before it explains insight into emptiness. That's when you get the teachings on developing serenity. Serenity is how I translate shamatha. Sometimes it's called calm abiding, but calm abiding, I don't know, doesn't do anything for me anyway. The words don't have an evocative thing. Serenity, oh yeah, I'd like to be serene. Okay, but usually we don't learn about how to develop our concentration until the advanced scope. And then the higher training in wisdom, is again usually put in the advanced scope and focuses particularly on the realization of emptiness. Whereas when we see the path as common to the fundamental vehicle and the Mahayana, the universal vehicle, we see that the teachings on concentration can be very well integrated into the middle scope with the higher training of concentration. And instead or in addition to the teachings in the higher scope about emptiness, another way to develop wisdom is through the 37 harmonies with awakening, and in particular with the 4 establishments of mindfulness. So this book goes into quite a bit on that practice. And I really like the practice of the 4 establishments of mindfulness. I think I remarked to you before that I think before people jump into Tantra and start visualizing themselves with multiple heads and arms and beings of different colors and so on, that it's good if they understand who they are right now. And that's what the practice of the four establishments of mindfulness does for us. And then when we move into Tantra, we start really getting a better idea of the special or the unique features in Tantra in terms of how we see the body, okay, how we see feelings, how we see the mind, how we see all phenomena. So Tantra, deals with those same four objects that are in the four establishments of mindfulness, but in a very different way. So having the foundation of the four establishments is good. Also, since nowadays people are talking so much about mindfulness, but they really, or at least I should say secular mindfulness, has its own meaning that is very different from the Buddhist meaning of mindfulness. So it's very good if we as Buddhist practitioners actually know how mindfulness is practiced and what mindfulness means in a Buddhist context. So we can differentiate between the secular mindfulness and the mindfulness that is the path to liberation. Because secular mindfulness, now you listen to relaxing music, you see good pictures, basketball stars will teach you mindfulness, tech people will teach you mindfulness, your corporate CEO will teach you mindfulness to get you to work harder and make more money for the company. But this is not what Buddhists are talking about. So I think it's quite helpful for us to know the Buddhist context of this practice. And actually to do the practice. I think I've done some retreats on the four establishments of mindfulness, and they're really good. Really, it's a great meditation to go into. Okay, so let me give you the overview of this volume. Okay, you may recognize the cover. It's the drawing that shows how to attain shamatha, okay, with the monk running after his mind, saying, stop, slow down. And the elephant, just symbolizing his mind, just gallivanting away to finally taming the elephant and riding on it. Okay, so attaining serenity. Okay, but like I said, this book starts with refuge. So it's a really, just a second, where are the little things for this? Oh, so it starts with refuge. And what we did here in the section on refuge is we brought in a lot of the material that you usually find in the treatises. So for especially Uttara Tantra, the sublime continuum. And so in that scripture, it talks a lot about the qualities of the three jewels, really going into depth about what they are. It's not like the Lam Rim, very simple version of refuge, which is already complicated enough for people who don't know anything about Buddha Dharma Sangha. Okay, but we talk about the three jewels according to the fundamental vehicle, the perfection vehicle, the 8 excellent qualities of the Buddha jewel, of the Dharma jewel, and of the Sangha jewel, final and provisional refuge, and also the 3 jewels according to the Vajra vehicle. So it's quite a complete thing. And I thought to read some of the things from this first chapter. There's one chapter that is called The Mind's Potential and the Existence of the 3 Jewels. So I find this quite inspiring and thought-provoking. Okay, So let me read you a little bit from this. Okay, so before discussing the qualities of the three jewels, it is helpful to know the mind's potential and how mental purification occurs. Yeah, so these points were covered in some way in chapter 12 of the Foundation of the Buddhist Practice. We did that 2 weeks ago, but we're going beyond that now. The greatest potential each sentient being has is to become a fully awakened Buddha who has the wisdom, compassion, and power to be of the greatest benefit to all beings. A key quality of the Buddha is omniscience. How is attaining omniscience possible given our current state of ignorance? Yeah. This is an important question because when we look at our mind closely, we begin to see that we are quite out of touch with reality. You know, when you start understanding what the Dharma is, what the Buddha is saying, it's like, wait, my mind thinks the opposite of what the Buddha said. You know, I think impermanent things are permanent. And I think things that are the nature of are unsatisfactory by nature are pleasant and wonderful, you know? So you wonder sometimes, how can my mind go from where it is now to Buddhahood? Okay, so His Holiness says the mind has the natural capacity to cognize objects, but various obstructions prevent it from knowing phenomena. So first one, okay, an intervening object like a wall prevents us from seeing what is on the other side of the wall. Fair enough, okay? 2, the object is very far away or very small and is not within the purview of our sense faculties. Yeah, of course we can't see it. 3, our cognitive faculties are defected or limited in their scope. For example, our visual consciousness cannot hear sounds. If we have severe cataracts, we can barely see, and an animal brain is not equipped to comprehend philosophy. Okay, so yes, our cognitive faculties are quite limited in their scope. Needless to say, we all know we can't see the things that animals can see. You know, we can't hear the things that many animals can hear. So, you know, we're kind of a little bit arrogant as human beings, and like, I don't believe it unless I can see it and contact it with my senses. But we know our senses are so limited. Yeah. So it's really rather foolish for us to confine the realm of our knowledge just to what we can contact by our senses. Okay. Then the 5th thing that obscures, some objects are so subtle, vast, or profound that unless we have meditative concentration or the super knowledges, we cannot know them. Good point. So our mental consciousness is quite limited. And if we're able to develop it through concentration practices, through wisdom practices, then many more fields of knowledge become available to us. Okay. Then 6, the latencies of ignorance and the mistaken appearances that they cause prevent the mind from knowing both veiled or conventional truths and ultimate truths simultaneously by one consciousness. Okay, so we don't even know what ultimate truths are. We can't even perceive them. And we don't perceive conventional truths accurately. Yeah, let alone seeing both of them as they actually are at the same time. From their side, Buddhas are not limited by the above obscurations, and having perfected their virtuous qualities, they have the ability to effortlessly and spontaneously manifest in limitless ways to benefit sentient beings. However, their power is not omnipotent in the sense of being able to unilaterally control events. Our ability to be benefited by the Buddhas depends on our receptivity. So I think we talked about this before, didn't we? A little bit, that, our minds are kind of like, the analogy often given is an upside down bowl, okay? The sun is shining all the time, but when the bowl's upside down, no light can enter it, okay? We can pray all we want. May the light come into the upside down bowl, but it's impossible, okay? So the upside down bowl is like our current mind, okay? We're not so receptive to so many fields of knowledge, to so many ideas. Often we listen to Buddha's teachings and kind of scratch our head and like, what does that really mean? If right now we're receiving some teachings on illumination of the thought, Jason Kappa's, incredible text. And some sections, yeah. And some sections, it's like, what is he talking about? So we're very often like upside down bowls, okay? So what we do in our practice is we are slowly turning that bowl. And as we start to turn the bowl and make it more upright, then the light from the Buddha, the teachings, the inspiration can flow into our mind and really have a profound effect. Okay, before we talked about the word blessing and how blessing isn't something that comes from outside into us. It's a collaborative process of us being receptive and the Buddha's incredible compassion and his enlightened activities. So that's what this example pertains to. Okay. So as our understanding of the mind increases, we will gain conviction in 3 points. First, the basic nature of the mind is pure and clear. So we've heard those words. We believe them. Do we have conviction in that? Can we explain to somebody else exactly what it means that the basic nature of the mind is pure and clear? Okay. Second, afflictions are based on ignorance that apprehend phenomena as existing in the opposite way than they actually exist. Okay. Thus, ignorance and the afflictions born from it are adventitious and do not inhere in the nature of the mind. So again, we've heard that. We believe it. But do we really get it? When we get depressed about our practice, or when we despair about the state of the world and how crazy it is, at those times, do we really believe that the afflictions are adventitious and that they can be counteracted and, the mind return to its pure and clear state? Or are we just sunk in the afflictions are truly existent and they're always going to be here and there's no way to get rid of them and the world is just hopeless? It's interesting, isn't it? Like we say, we believe a lot of things, but when push comes to shove, just in our daily life, do we really believe the things we say we believe? Okay, the third thing that His Holiness is saying we will gain conviction is it is possible to cultivate powerful antidotes, realistic and beneficial mental states that root out ignorance, afflictions, and other obscurations. Okay. So again, we say that, but do we really believe that we can get rid of our anger? Yeah. Do you really believe that? What about people who say, and they may be some of us, who knows, I am an angry person and I've always been that way and I'm always going to be angry. So you just better get used to it because I'm not going to change. Okay. So if we say that to the world, or if we say, I have addiction problems. I'm addicted to my smartphone, not to mention to some alcohol and drugs and surfing the internet and going, whatever the things we like to do are that we're actually addicted to, it's like, yeah, I have attachment, but I enjoy these things. I'm not going to get rid of them. Anyway, it's too hard. I need them. I'm stressed out at the end of the day and I need these things and I am not going to give them up. My 5:00 happy hour, whatever version of that exists in 2021. Okay. Yeah. So do we really believe we can give up our attachment? Do we really believe we can give up our anger? Okay. So if we can gain some real conviction and ascertainment of these three things that His Holiness just spoke of, wow, we can, I think that will really give us the confidence and impetus to go on the path and really make, accomplish something. Yeah. But so often we become our own worst enemy and we shoot ourselves in the foot and, get despondent, discouraged, and fed up, all this stuff. Okay. So in chapter 24, okay, here His Holiness is beginning an incredible explanation about about how we can prove to ourselves that the three jewels exist. Okay. I don't know about you, but when I first learned the Dharma, I love the Dharma, but I was plagued by this thought of how do I know the Buddha exists? Yeah. Anyway, here's what Nagarjuna says, chapter 24 of Treatise on the Middle Way. Okay, so Nagarjuna explains that together, the doctrines of dependent arising and emptiness of inherent existence establish the existence of the three jewels. That sounds interesting, but how in the world does that happen? Because all phenomena arise dependently, they lack inherent existence. Because dependent existence and inherent existence are completely contradictory. They can't go together. Ignorance, okay, because all phenomena arise dependently, they lack inherent existence. Ignorance, however, grasps phenomena to exist in the opposite way as inherently existent. Okay, so the reality is things are dependent. How does ignorance work? It grasps the opposite and it says, no, everything is independent and inherently existent. Okay, and we are so ignorant that we don't even notice our ignorance because we believe that everything we see exists the way it appears to us. Yeah. How many times today did we stop and ask ourselves, is what I'm seeing with my senses or is what I'm thinking, does it exist the way I think it does? Yeah? Did we stop today at all and ask ourselves that question? Yeah, very seldom, because we are so immersed in ignorance that we don't even question it. Okay? But ignorance grasps things to exist in the opposite way as inherently existent. Because phenomena exist dependent on other factors, sprouts depend on seeds, children depend on their parents. They do not exist independently or inherently. When wisdom realizes their emptiness, it has the power to gradually eradicate ignorance and the latencies of ignorance from our minds. And when this happens, as ignorance and its latencies are beginning and continue to be eradicated, this stops our dukkha. Okay? This wisdom is true paths, and the cessation of the afflictions and dukkha are true cessations. Okay? Two of the four truths, okay? And these two truths are also the Dharma refuge. Okay, more specifically, a true cessation is the purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind that has removed a portion of afflictions by means of its antidote, the true path. Okay, I will go through that again. This was, when I was having the interviews with His Holiness. Yeah, he said this, and I went, what? Well, not like that. I tried to be more refined when I'm with His Holiness. But, I'm like, what? Explain that. And then he had to go over it many times, okay, to get in my thick skull, okay? So here's what a true cessation is, okay? Because remember, as we progress on the path, we don't eliminate all the afflictions and their seeds and their latencies like this. It isn't you realize emptiness and tomorrow you're Buddha, okay? You realize emptiness, and then if you're on the Bodhisattva path, yeah, it's going to still take you a few countless great eons until you become a Buddha, because we have to accumulate merit. We have to really get the understanding of emptiness integrated with our mind, okay? And as we do that, as emptiness gets more and more integrated, then different layers of the afflictions are canceled, are eradicated in such a way that they can never come back again. Okay, so it's this gradual process. So there are actually many true cessations along the path. Yeah, the afflictions are divided into different categories or different levels, different grades of afflictions, and different grades are eliminated, on the path of seeing. There, all your acquired afflictions are eliminated. Then on the Bodhisattva path with the 10 bhumis, then each ground, there's different layers of afflictions that get ended. And as each layer gets ended, that is a true cessation. So you're accumulating true cessations. True cessations are actually emptinesses. Okay? So we usually think of true cessation as the obliteration of some layer of afflictions. But actually, as is being defined here, a true cessation is the purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind. Okay, let's just do that part of the definition. purified aspect of the emptiness of the mind. Okay. So why does emptiness need to be purified? Yeah, emptiness is the ultimate truth. And when we say our part of our Buddha nature is the emptiness of our mind, well, that's, always been pure from the beginning. It's never been, the afflictions have never been integrated into the emptiness of our mind. So what's it talking about the purified aspect of the emptiness of the mind? Okay. Because when a mind has afflictions, the ultimate truth of that mind, the emptiness of that mind, is also obscured. Yeah, the afflictions are covering the mind in general, but they aren't the nature of the mind, and they aren't the nature of the emptiness of the mind. But because the mind at a certain level and the emptiness of that mind are one nature, and they're never separated, if the mind is covered in afflictions, somehow its emptiness is considered obscured. Okay? So as you purify the mind, the emptiness of those different levels of mind, that are purified, that emptiness becomes more and more purified too. Okay, but let's continue to look at what he said here. Okay. It's just one sentence, but there's so much in it. Okay, so a true cessation is the purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind. And it's not just any old mind. It's a mind that has removed a portion of afflictions by means of its antidote, the true path. Okay, so this mind, the emptiness of which is getting purified and becoming a true cessation, this mind, through the realization of emptiness, is removing one portion of afflictions after another, after another, after another, as it ascends the paths and grounds. So each time it eliminates a portion of afflictions, the mind eliminates the portion of afflictions. Part of the emptiness of the mind is also getting purified. Okay, so that true cessation is the purified aspect of the emptiness of a mind that has removed a portion of afflictions, not just by getting distracted and the affliction not being manifest in our mind, but by the affliction being counteracted by the power of wisdom, such that it can never arise again and is completely eradicated from the mind. Okay, so that is what is going on as we are progressing through the Bodhisattva paths and grounds. So true paths and true cessations constitute the Dharma jewel. And in this way, the existence of the Dharma jewel, which is the actual refuge, is established. Okay, so look at what Nagarjuna and His Holiness are doing here. Okay, they're talking about true paths and how they free our mind from levels of obscuration, and we get true cessations, which are emptinesses. Those are the Dharma jewel. Okay, so the first thing they're doing is establishing the existence of the Dharma jewel. Yeah. So because ignorance misconceives how phenomena exist, and because wisdom ascertains the exact opposite of what ignorance perceives, because ignorance perceives inherent existence, wisdom perceives the emptiness of inherent existence. That wisdom can eradicate the ignorance, starting at very gross levels and getting ever more subtle. Okay. So he's just starting, just with dependent arising and emptiness, which are facts of the universe. These are things we can verify through our experience. We can see with our eyes that things arise in dependence. We can use inference to get an understanding that things are empty of inherent existence. So this doesn't involve any blind faith at all. It involves our exerting some effort to understand these things, but we can understand them, using our wisdom and intelligence. Okay. And in that way, have confidence that the Dharma jewel exists. Okay, so true paths are first generated and true cessations are first actualized on the path of seeing of all three vehicles, the Shravaka, solitary realizer, and Bodhisattva vehicles. And they exist in the mind streams of Aryas on the paths of seeing, meditation, and no more learning in all three vehicles. Those that have directly perceived emptiness and actualized true cessations are Aryas, and they become the Sangha jewel. So first he established the existence of the Dharma jewel, and then by showing that there are people who have the Dharma jewel in their mental continuum, Nagarjuna and His Holiness established the existence of the Sangha jewel. When bodhisattvas overcome all obscurations, they become Buddhas, the Buddha jewel. In this way, the existence of the three jewels is established, and the possibility of our becoming the three jewels is demonstrated. Okay, so he used emptiness and dependent arising, to prove the existence of true paths and true cessations, which are the Dharma refuge. Those who have actualized various layers of true paths and true cessations are the Sangha refuge, the Arya Sangha in particular. Okay, and those who have completely freed their mind, and eradicated all the obscurations, they become the Buddha jewel. So right there, they prove the existence of the three jewels through proving dependent arising and emptiness. Okay. This really knocks me for a loop every time I read this, It's like, wow, there's something in here, okay? So His Holiness says, when we deeply contemplate Nagarjuna's explanation, our faith in the three jewels grows, not because someone told us about them or because we admire them, but because we understand the possibility of mental development that can lead to actualizing the three jewels ourselves. So in proving the existence of the three jewels, Nagarjuna has also proved that we can become the three jewels and we can attain non-abiding nirvana. Okay, there it is. Okay. So the ideal way to take refuge in the three jewels entails some degree of understanding of emptiness and dependent arising. Of course, we may initially take refuge for more elementary reasons, but our refuge will deepen as our understanding of the three jewels increases. Okay. Then I wanted to, there's so many good things in this chapter. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to the rest of the book beyond the refuge section. Okay, then, okay, page 54. Okay, so have any of you studied Pramanavartika by Dharmakirti? Yeah. Geshe Tapke, who I know is one of your teachers, he just got done teaching chapter 2 to Sravasti Abbey. We requested him for teachings on this chapter, and he's, I think, three years. Yeah, it took him to get through, maybe longer. I don't know, but anyway, this time he finished. So chapter 2 of Pramanavartika is an expanded explanation of Dignaga's homage at the beginning of his book. Okay, so his book was called Pramana Samuchaya, in English, Compendium of Reliable Cognition. And here's how he paid homage to the Buddha. I bow to the one who has become a reliable guide, starting out intent on benefiting migrating beings, followed by generating the wisdom that serves as the way, then reaching the state of the one gone to bliss, the Sugata, and finally emerging as the protector. Okay, so what he's doing is he's proving why the Buddha is a reliable guide, why the Buddha is a reliable object of refuge. Okay. So Dharmakirti's synthesis of this reason, I'll read it to you and then we'll go through a longer explanation, is out of compassion, he states what is best for the listener. Okay, the Buddha states what is best for the listener. And through his pristine wisdom, he says what is true. Since he is intent upon stating what is best and true, along with the means to realize it, he is reliable. He is praised as reliable in that his teaching is of that kind. And the purpose of praising him in that fashion is to establish the nature of what is reliable through that teaching. Okay, so here's a short explanation of all of that. It's really amazing. I first heard this teaching from Geshe Nalandargi at the library in Dharamsala, and it sounded good, but I was a baby beginner. I didn't understand a whole lot, but it sounded really interesting. But then later, as I've studied this more and more, it's like different flowers blooming in a garden. You know, you get little bits of understanding here and there. Okay, so the Buddha is the one who has transformed himself into a reliable being. Saying that he has become a reliable guide indicates that the Buddha is not an absolute or independently existent being who has possessed magnificent qualities from the beginning. Okay, so already Buddha and God are two entirely different things. Okay, don't get them confused. So the Buddha cultivated a compassionate intention. So that was the first thing, you know. When we look, let me just go back to that Dignaga's phrase. I bow to the one who has become a reliable guide. So this is what he's proving. Okay. So what is he using to prove it with? First of all, starting out on intent on benefiting migrating beings. So the whole thing that is the foundation of the Buddha becoming a reliable guide for us on the path to awakening is his compassion and bodhicitta. That's the basic thing. Okay. Starting out, intent on benefiting migratings, followed by generating the wisdom that serves as the way. So because he had great compassion and bodhicitta, he knew he had to purify his mind. He also knew he had to learn the method to counteract the afflictions so that he could teach them to us. So what did he do? He became what is called the teacher. And how did he do that? By generating the wisdom that serves as the way that eradicates the afflictions and brings the realization. Okay, so teacher is the second step. Yeah, being intent on benefiting others, that motivates him to become a teacher. Okay. Then reaching the state of the one gone to bliss, the Sugata. So the Sugata is a Buddha. It's another epithet for the Buddha. And the Sugata has special things that the Buddha, Sugata, has special abandonments and special realizations that none of the other bodhisattvas have. So you can see here we're watching how the Buddha progressed on the path, starting with the intention to benefit others, learning, developing wisdom, becoming the Sugata with special abandonments and realizations, and then finally emerging as the protector. Okay, so the Buddha is the protector in that he teaches us the Dharma. And by teaching us the Dharma, he gives us the tools to liberate ourselves. And in that way, he protects us from dukkha. So the Buddha doesn't protect us by swooping down like his Superman, and grabbing us up from the guy who's beating us up and taking, flying off with us somewhere. So the main way the Buddha protects us is teaching us the Dharma, giving us the tools, empowering us. So the Buddha cultivated compassion and intention and the wisdom realizing selflessness and stabilized them in his mind over a long period of time. In this way, he abandoned all defilements, developed all excellent qualities. Those are the abandonments and realizations of the Sugata, and is capable of teaching others what to practice and abandon on the path through his own experience. So the Buddha did not intellectually lay out a path. He's just telling us his own experience. Yeah, he's just telling, we always want to we get to know other people, but we want to hear their experience and what they went through. Well, this is what the Dharma teachings are. This is the Buddha telling us his experience. Okay. And so by following that same path, we can do the same. Why do we want to establish the Buddha as a reliable guide? If we are Buddhist practitioners who seek liberation and awakening, we need to know what to practice and what to abandon to reach our spiritual goals. We don't know this on our own and need a teacher. Okay, that's something we really need to remember. Too many people, there's a quotation, be your own island, be your own refuge, or be your own island, something like that, some kind of quotation from the Buddha. And people often take it to mean, I can be my own teacher. So I take a little bit from Buddhism, and a little bit from Christianity and Judaism and Sufism, and a little bit from crystals, and a little bit from Wiccan, and a little bit from, this and that and the other thing, and I mix them all together, and I practice that. Yeah. And Lama Yeshe used to call that soup. Okay. He said it's like eating soup. You put your carrots and celery and garbanzo beans and everything else in one pot. So we make up our own path to enlightenment by cherry picking all the parts in the different religions that appeal to us. Okay. Appeal to us means they appeal to our self-centered mind. So when we invent our own religion or cherry pick from other religions, we're very often avoiding correcting the major things that we need to work on. Okay? Because we're just doing what feels good to our ego. Yeah, and reinforcing that. And then thinking that we've accomplished some abracadabra wild thing, okay? So we don't know what to practice and what to abandon on our own. We need a teacher. And it is imperative that this teacher be unmistaken. Okay? If we get a teacher, that is not fully awakened, like the Buddha is or was, then we're going to be going off on who knows what kind of path. If we follow an unreliable teacher who imparts fallacious teachings, we risk confusing virtue and non-virtue, and as a result, falling to an unfortunate rebirth. For this reason, we want to establish that the Buddha is an authoritative guide who teaches the unmistaken path. So each of the reasons in Dignaga's praise illustrates why the Buddha is reliable. One, because he started out intent on benefiting migrating beings. Okay, so that's telling us that's how we need to start out too. Okay. Two, he strove to gain the true path, the wisdom realizing selflessness. So we need to do that too. Of course, we need all sorts of other practices. We need purification, accumulation of merit. We need to practice, and generate renunciation of samsara and all sorts of other things. But they fit into those first two categories. Okay, three, this wisdom led the Buddha to attain the state of the one gone thus, the Sugata, who has perfect abandonments and realizations. And four, in that way, he became a reliable and trustworthy protector guide who teaches the four truths from his own experience. Each of these attributes builds on the previous one, culminating in the Buddha being a reliable spiritual guide for those seeking temporal happiness in samsara and the highest good of liberation and full awakening. Okay, then there's a whole more to come, but I think I should tell you more about the book than just the first chapter. Okay. So actually the first three chapters are about refuge. Okay. Then chapter 4 goes into the higher training and ethical conduct. Okay. So the importance of ethical conduct, the pratimoksha ethical code. So that is like the 5 lay precepts, the monastic precepts. He talks about the Vinaya schools, the benefits of practicing the pratimoksha ethical conduct. Then there's a whole section on intoxicants, okay? And then there's another section, why celibacy? Yeah, these are, in the West, I would say, the 2 things that people get hung up on in one way or another. I know when I do the refuge and precept ceremony for people. Yeah, of the 5 precepts, the ones that people have the most difficulty with is the intoxicant precept. And they have all sorts of reasons why they can't take the intoxicant precept. And it's always for the benefit of other people that they take intoxicants. Okay? Because you see, if I go to a family dinner and the family is drinking, if I don't drink, they're going to think I'm weird, and my family's going to think Buddhism is weird. Whereas if I have wine with the family, then they'll think I'm normal, and they won't create any negative karma disliking Buddhism. Okay, that's why they have to drink with their family. Then they have to drink with their friends, because if I go to a party, actually, I don't want to drink, but, everybody drinks at parties. And if I don't drink, then they're going to look at me and say, what kind of prude are you? What did Buddhism do to you? You can't have any fun anymore. You're so uptight. You won't even have a few puffs of grass, or take a little bit of, whatever the latest drug is, or have a drink. You're so prudish. What happened to you? So you see, I want my friends to see how I've changed in a positive way from practicing Buddhism. But if I don't drink, then they're going to think Buddhism is awful. So to really inspire faith in them and to help them see you can be a normal person and be a Buddhist at the same time. Therefore, I drink with them. But I really would prefer not to. Okay? I hear these excuses, all the time. Okay? It's amazing. And sometimes so many people tell me that they really don't want to drink at parties, but they just do it so that other people don't think they're weird, that I wonder sometimes if actually nobody at a party wants to drink and they're all drinking for the benefit of the other people. Okay? Okay. And then, of course, celibacy, people decide. When it comes to taking the 5 precepts, okay, so most difficult one, intoxicant. Second one is to abandon unwise and unkind sexual behavior. Now, here's where the bargaining starts, okay? By bargaining, I mean, well, is this bad? What about if you do this? And what about that? And this seems like okay to do, and that, and this, and who, and how, and it's like, yeah. Okay. Again, bargaining with the precept, And I must say, I do define when I give the precepts, I do define the one against sexual misconduct differently. Okay, because actually, the standard way of explaining it, the women will love this one. Maybe the men will too. Okay, according to Vasubandhu, okay, it breaks the sexual misconduct precept. If somebody else has paid for a prostitute, but you sleep with her, so that's a transgression. Okay, the way Bethany reacted was the way I did. I nearly went through the ceiling when I heard that. It's like, what? Going to a prostitute is perfectly okay. You don't see the harm and damage it does. You don't see what's going on when you traffic other human beings for sexual pleasure. It was like, so anyway, Yeah, I have different standards for that one. But again, that one's really hard for people. So, but His Holiness goes into explaining it, why? What's the value? Then there's a chapter about the monastic community that includes challenges for Western monastics, full ordination for women, advice for monastics, and then a beautiful poem that His Holiness wrote many years ago. It's called The Joy of Monastic Discipline. It's a very nice poem. Then chapter 6 gets into the higher training and concentration. So that is chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So many chapters about developing concentration, not only in our tradition, but also in the Pali tradition and also in Chinese Buddhism. So it's a very interesting series of chapters here, really looking at the development of serenity from different perspectives. So that's the higher training and concentration. Then the higher training and wisdom. So there's a chapter on the role of mindfulness and introspective awareness. Then the 4 establishments of mindfulness, body, feelings, and mind. A chapter on the, and also the establishment of mindfulness on phenomena. And then the last chapter, chapter 14, is the 37 harmonies with awakening. So I just went through all those quickly because we have to leave a few minutes for questions. But anyway, it gives you an idea of what is contained in this one volume, okay? So, comments or questions?
All right, well, I'm going to have to say that I did take those 5 precepts with the Dalai Lama a long time ago. I didn't really know what I was doing. And the one that I did have problems with was the intoxicants.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of bargaining with Gala Rinpoche of how can I just get rid of this one and keep the other ones? I did all of that, but I was much more selfish in that I just wanted to have wine when I wanted to, not, anything about my friends or family. Is I just wanted to have wine when I wanted to have wine, And so, but over time, I think I've not really been drinking at all because of that, except once in a while. And so they do work. But I also think that it was more about mindfulness for me, not drinking so that you have lost your mind. So I would still have a glass of wine now and again because I can still retain my mindfulness. And anything beyond that, then you're losing that mindfulness. So that's where I see that was useful.
Yeah. When you see that the precepts, first of all, they protect us from doing what we don't want to do anyway. Okay. So we shouldn't see them as rules coming from outside being imposed on us. Like the 10 Commandments, we see them as coming from outside and, you better follow them or what's going to happen to you. With Buddhism, ethical conduct isn't like that. It's based on our thinking about what behavior benefits us and what doesn't, and how it has a lot to do with maintaining our own self-respect. When I do certain actions, which ones harm my own self-respect? Yeah. When I do other actions, which ones help me feel more self-confident because I'm living according to my own ethical values? So in Buddhism, this whole thing about ethical discipline is really a way, like I said, to help us not to do what we don't want to do anyway, because we've already thought about it and decided we don't want to do it. And it's also a way for us to learn how to feel good about ourselves and to have self-esteem. And I have a theory that a lot of the reasons when people go, for therapy or counseling, I think many of the reasons, not all of them, certainly not all of them, but many of them have to do with people having done some kind of action or behavior or acted in a certain way or treated somebody else in a way that they don't feel good about. And then that weighs on your mind. And especially as you get older and you have more relationships that don't work out or where there's tension. And if you don't know how to resolve that in your mind and learn, if we can't learn from our own mistakes, if we don't know how to apologize, if we don't know how to forgive others and forgive ourselves, then that affects us not only spiritually, but psychologically. And I think that a lot of this feeling that people have of internal malaise may have something to do with that. Yeah. And that the more we're able to honestly look at what we did in the past, purify what needs to be purified, forgive people, forgive ourselves, then the more the healthier we are on a psychological level too. Yeah. And then, of course, spiritually, we don't have as much negative karma obscuring our mind, and we have more virtue nourishing our mind. So I think ethical conduct is it's not about following somebody else's rules. Okay? No, not at all. Other questions or comments? Okay, then I'm sorry I didn't get to some of the juicy parts. I had wanted you to read you parts of the 4 establishments of mindfulness, but you can read them. Okay.